All right, perfect. So we're recording. So, Lynn, first of all, you really appreciate you joining. Anybody that wasn't able to join, we hate that we miss you, but we are going to record this for you. My name's James Pope with Technology Lab. I've got my colleague Brian Hayden on here with us, and then we have a special guest that's going to be talking primarily through this virtual meetup, who is Hank Lawerence, and Hank is. Been an E-rate consultant for many, many years. I'll let him kind of give you a little brief introduction before he gets going. But, we've had the opportunity to kind of work with Hank, inside the E-rate side of things. We've found that he's very helpful with clients for charter schools and things of that nature. And so we asked him to be on here to bring his knowledge to the table and talk through kind of what's going on in E-rate, especially with this big, new budget year coming up in 2021, brand new reset, which we'll talk about. Definitely, if you have a microphone, Lynn, I saw your chat saying that you don't have a microphone, so that's all good. If you want to chat any questions that you have, along the way, just definitely stop us at any moment. We'll answer any questions along the way and go from there. So, first things first, Hank, why don't you give just a quick background of who you are, and then we'll kind of get into this.
Yeah, I based in Louisiana. I got involved with E-rate probably around 2011. My mom, actually, Terry Lawerence, she started working with E-rate back in '98. So I had done well in finance and semi-retired, and then she drugged me into E-rate, and come to find out I really like it. So I focus on charters and private schools and libraries. Based in Louisiana, but we work in Mississippi, Texas, Arkansas, Alabama, and of course, Tennessee. So, we started small and we've kind of grown. I think we work with about 80 or 90% of the charters out there in Louisiana. And then we're growing in each and every other state as well. The bigger changes that have come to E-rate, each year gets a little more difficult. It's not.
Hank,
they keep on promising to be easy. Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna give a quick background of who we are, and then I'm gonna kind of walk through kind of our agenda as far as what we're gonna be talking about, and then I'm gonna let you kind of go from there, if that's good. So
just shut me up. I'll talk all day.
I know you will. As far as Technology Lab, just so you guys who don't know, we're based here in Nashville, Tennessee, but we are the managed IT services provider, outsourced IT service provider for about 85 schools in the Southeast at this point. Majority of them in Tennessee, Mississippi, and then we're right now moving into the Louisiana and Georgia markets. And so, from a services standpoint, with most of the schools that we work with, it depends on size, right? Some schools that are larger keep an IT person or two on staff, and then we wrap our services around them and kind of make them part of our team. Smaller schools, single location schools, things of that nature, we usually are the IT department. So we do all the network design. We work to help figure out exactly what you need from a security standpoint. We're obviously doing all the help desk support for your teachers, your faculty, managing all the student devices, faculty devices, things of that nature. So, and a whole lot more. But ultimately, that's who we are. That's what we do. We're extremely charter focused, and kind of understand the challenges and the barriers, and have priced our services very specifically for charter schools. So, as far as today, Hank's gonna give you a little background on kind of E-rate in general if you don't have a lot of background on it. And then, we're gonna talk about kind of what's new with the 5-year budget that's coming up, just kind of the important E-rate applicant dates, so that you know what those are. We're gonna talk about understanding eligibility requirements, just, what's eligible, what's not, what's category 1, what's category 2. Some of these things, if you've done a lot of E-rate, are gonna be things, kind of refreshers. If you're just kind of new to trying to figure out how to utilize these government funds, then this will be really important information. And then understand how to file and get started. And we'll probably talk about how important it is to apply early and often. and to kind of go from there. So so Hank, why don't I turn it back over to you now? I know you have a few points along the way here that you want to hit on as far as just what E-rate is, you know, how you can maximize it and things of that nature.
Yeah, E-rate was a program that's funded through the FCC. It's not a tax, it's a fee. So we're not controlled by Congress, or we don't have to worry about funding from each and every year. So it's guaranteed funding. It's a reimbursement program. It's not a grant program. So essentially, if you spend the money, they'll take a percentage or determine what percentage they want to pay, and then they'll either pay you directly or pay the vendor. Uh, it's fairly simple as far as the process. You fill out your application, you make sure you follow the rules, and the money's there. It's guaranteed. There's never a question of whether or not they're going to have enough money to fund all the applications. At the moment, they actually have a huge surplus each year. So as long as you submit your application by the deadline, you'll have the funding for it. They, as I mentioned, it's a reimbursement program, and the reimbursement rates are determined by the student demographics that you serve. So the higher the participation rate in the free and reduced lunch program, the higher your discount will be, or your reimbursement rate. They will look at either free and reduced lunch numbers, or if you don't have those numbers, there's alternate mechanisms that we can use to determine those discounts. But regardless, even if you don't give them any information about your student discount, you're guaranteed at least a 20% discount. The maximum discount would be 90%, and all schools fit within that range.
And Hank, I mean, you know, just from your experience, just in Louisiana, you know, what is usually the rate for almost all the schools that you work with that they end up getting for charter schools?
Most charter schools are at a 90% discount, because most charter schools target a specific demographic they want to serve in their community. Some charter schools have a lower rate. Right now, there's some arguments that we're working with USAC that during the pandemic, they wanted all students to be eligible for free and reduced lunch where no one pays in the country. So then where does that stand in the student discount? So we're back and forth on that, but for the most part, I'd say 95% of the charter schools are eligible for the maximum discount. And it's 90% for internet. They pay for internet service, and then they'll pay for the internal infrastructure that you need to make your wireless network work, where your Wi-Fi. And they will pay 85% of your needs for that to make sure your network is functional. I guess the only caveat is they give you a set budget. Category 1 doesn't have a budget, but then Category 2, they determine a budget, and that budget's determined based on how many students the school serves.
Yeah. Hey, Sonny, how's it going? This is James Pope. Just saw you joined here. I was just on mute, making it really technically difficult on myself. Sorry to move the meeting, but the WOVA app was it was just all messed up, and I couldn't get Hank in there. So anyway.
You're totally fine. The Department of Ed has the system leaders call at 9 a.m. and this time of year, especially right now, it's like the state's moving in and out of phases, and we're trying to reopen hybrid. That's where I was. So sorry about my tardiness. But
oh yeah, it's all good.
I've got like overlapping things on my calendar, unfortunately, all day long.
No, we appreciate you joining. We haven't gotten too far into this yet. Hank Lawerence, who's on here with us, he's an E-rate consultant, and he is.
You're actually our E-rate consultant, Hank.
There you go.
Harmony High School. We emailed a little bit before.
There you go. So he was just going over some of the basics, some of the early stuff. Lynn Ashmore's on here as well with us. We're recording it too, so that anybody couldn't join, we'll just be able to send it out to them and that kind of thing. So ultimately, you know, what we're going to be talking about today is just obviously there's a big new 5-year budget coming up, you know, an E-rate application dates, just a lot of the details around best practices and how to leverage these dollars the best you possibly can. So I'll hand it back to you, Hank. So what's kind of new with this 5-year budget, you know, as far as E-rate? I know this is a big year coming up.
Yeah, so the first 5-year budget we had was basically a big experiment for the E-rate program, and things worked well. So they codified the Category 2 funding, so it's permanent. It's not a temporary thing, and they determined that every 5 years they will set a budget for the school, and that budget is based on how many students attend the school. So beginning 2021, each student will get $167, and that is a 5-year budget. So that $167 per student should last over that 5 years. You can use that money in 1 year, in 2 years. You don't have to use the money. You can pick any year you want, or you can use a little bit every year. It's totally up to the school for what they need. But the only budget, I mean, the cap would be the budget. They do make adjustments each year for inflation. So probably the average is 3% per year. So you're probably looking at the end of the 5 years, it might be up to $175 per student. Now, that 5 years, they looked at that and they said, well, most equipment has an end of life of 5 years, and we would like the schools to refresh their wireless equipment every 5 years if possible. So that's kind of how they came up with that formula. It's not a perfect formula, but you know, if I was in their situation trying to determine how to divvy up the money without spending too much, I'd probably follow the same formula.
Awesome.
Hank, what's the difference between what's in Category 2 and what's not?
That just leads us to our next question.
Right.
We needed you here earlier, Sonny.
So
I'm actually asking too, because I just did a little calculating, and we're at about half of what our capacity is going to be as a school because we're a new school. And so is that budget based on the number of students that we have during this particular school year, even though we're adding, like, by 5 years from now, we'll have twice as many students?
correct. You can adjust your student counts each year. Usually
cool.
the October 1 numbers are the standard. But if a school has an influx or increase in student population, anytime before you file that application, which is typically in January, you can use the highest numbers, and that will determine your budget for that particular year. There again, if you lose students, your budget goes down. There is an option to lock in for 5 years if you want, but most charters are in growth mode. So it's very rare for them to want to use a 5-year lock-in. A school district does, but a small school doesn't necessarily want to do that.
Cool, thanks.
So basically what it'll pay for the Category 1 pays for internet. And if you have multiple sites at different addresses, it will pay for the fiber to connect those buildings, which would be called a WAN circuit. Then Category 2 pays for everything to make your wireless network functional. So that would be cabling, switches, routers, access points, anything that you may need. You can do a lot of times, like you mentioned, if you're in growth mode, you will start with a core infrastructure, and then that infrastructure would be designed to grow with you. So you can buy all the switches that you need in year 1, and then all you need to do is just add cabling and access points as you start filling up your classrooms on your campus.
Okay.
And that's key. That's a really key thing, is just, you know, thinking about this is 5 years. You have to be thinking 5 years down the road. And we've seen a lot of schools that we've ended up kind of come in later and start working with them and kind of bail them out, where they, you know, put a bid out early on in their school's tenure, and, you know, whoever they awarded that bid to, they were just, you know, kind of just quoting what they had put on the bid, right? They weren't having a deeper conversation around, okay, what do you need long-term? Like, you know, how does this really need to be structured so that you don't find yourself 3 years down the road with obsolete technology that you have to basically rip and replace just to, you know, kind of suffice for how large your school ends up becoming. So the other thing too, Hank, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but also in Category 2, you have the ability to utilize those funds for the management of that network as well. So whatever the network is that you put in, you know, and that's a lot of times that's where we come in. We manage the network of a lot of the schools, almost all the schools that we work with, and a lot of that management cost can be offset by E-rate and Category 2. And so just that's another thing just to note. And so we work with a lot of schools, you know, on just ultimately just the design of what it should look like. You know, obviously we can't be guaranteed to win the bid, but you know, if we can help at least give guidance on what you should be doing given what you have, then you know, we just hope down the road that we do earn the business. So.
What about schools like ours who plans to, we plan to move in the next few years? Like we're in a temporary location right now.
Yeah. So when we've dealt with that a lot of times. So if we end up becoming a provider that is actually managing the network, helping get the network in there, we would just basically take that infrastructure, move it to the new space, and just continue to build out from there. Personally, from our perspective, you know, putting in a network that can be cloud managed is really, really important because it's much easier to kind of move around, move pieces of equipment from one place to another, not have to be tied so much to like the internal infrastructure as just making sure that you have the right amount of AP coverage, the right amount of Wi-Fi coverage, you know, obviously the right size firewall,
Right.
you know, for the amount of bandwidth coming in and things of that nature. So, you know, we've had a lot of schools that work with us that, you know, have moved 2-3 years after we started working with them. And it's pretty easy process as long as we know it's coming, you know, far enough down the road. We have plans of the building and we kind of know what's happening.
Okay.
So that's just more of a planning thing on the front end and along the way as you kind of know where you're going.
Great. Sorry if I'm asking, if I'm just like taking over and asking every question.
No, that's what this is. I mean, that's what this is for.
Yeah, there are a couple of different models. There's companies that will come in and lease you the equipment. They'll manage the equipment for you. So they'll come in, install, and make sure that network is functional and functioning up to whatever specs you need them to function at, and just charge you a monthly fee. You don't have to buy the equipment. If something fails in the network, that vendor will come out and fix it. It's almost like a cable service. And that's what the FCC envisioned when they developed that category of service called managed internal broadband. They really wanted a company to come in and do everything for the schools, because they realized a lot of the charters didn't have they couldn't have IT people. They didn't have the wherewithal to manage a full IT department when they're just a single site school.
Yeah, we don't, and we don't have plans for that in like our long-term budget, but this is not something that I've even entered a line item in as our, you know, our 5-year plan includes being in a new space. And I know, like, I can anticipate what that cost is what the cost can't go over because the state won't approve our budget, right? But there's a lot of other costs that I haven't factored into that startup.
Well, and that's one thing. A lot of times a charter can contract with a single company to provide all of those services, but under the contract, it'll usually be monthly services, fixed fees. So it's a lot easier to plug into a budget.
Yeah. I'm curious too, because the building that we're hoping to go into is the charity development downtown. And I know that they're going to be outfitting that building, you know, the full building. It's 1 million square feet and we'll have 36,000. We're a teeny tiny little group, but I know that the plan is for them to like outfit that entire building as they're building it out with, you know, the best Wi-Fi and situation they can. And if that's just part of what our fees are going to be overall, or if there's an opportunity for us to save money there, what the best option would be for us. I don't really know the answer to that right now. More
than likely they're going to probably handle all the cabling and all the internal wiring infrastructure piece. As far as the actual equipment and from like access points and like I was talking about firewall switches, I would doubt that they're going to provide that, because you know, if there's going to be more than one, it sounds like this is going to be a big building,
multiple tenants.
So you know, everyone's going to want to have their own network and stuff. So I would doubt that they'll do that. But just so you know, Sonny, I mean, we'd be happy to kind of talk to you a little bit about, you know, how we've we've worked with a lot of startup charters and kind of got them kind of going from an IT perspective, so you don't, really just avoid mistakes, right? Avoid mistakes around technology, not spend as much money as you would otherwise, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So Hank, as far as like the applicant dates, can you talk a little bit about kind of what that applicant date structure looks like?
Yeah, the calendar. Typically, July 1st through December is the best time to start your procurement. There's a 30-day waiting period that you have to advertise for the services that you're requesting. And there's the minimum waiting period in Louisiana is 30 days. So you'll have to post the advertisement for services on the USAC website, wait 30 days. During those 30 days, you'll get bids in. And after that, you can review those bids, score them, and award contracts. The first quarter of each year, which is January through March, they will start accepting applications. So essentially from July to December is that time where you're getting all the contracts in place and signed and executed. And then in January, you start filing applications. That application window is only 72 days, so it's very short. The best scenario is to have everything ready to file and then simply file the application. To file the application only takes 10 minutes. But at this time of the year, there's still plenty of time to go through the procurement process, but that window is closing quickly, because you can imagine, we've got Christmas holidays, and even if you started today, it would probably be mid-January before you would be ready to really review bids and award contracts. From that point, once you file the application, there's a review process, and the funding is always available July 1st. So you have to it's hard to project that far in advance, especially when you're a startup school and you don't even know where I'm going to be. It's difficult, but it's certainly possible.
Awesome. Next on this kind of agenda of things just to cover, we already covered number 3, which is kind of eligibility requirements, Cat 1, Cat 2, what's the difference, and that kind of thing. Sonny, Lynn, I don't think you guys have any more questions about that, so we may just breeze to the next one. The next one that I have on here is just understanding how to file. It's pretty convoluted process. So just how do you, what's best practice as far as filing? How do you even navigate this whole thing to be able to make sure you're getting what you should be getting and that kind of thing?
Well, you can do it yourself, and the program is designed where you're supposed to be able to figure this out. They have tutorials on the website, which is usac.org, and then /SL, schools and libraries, and then those tutorials will guide you how to set up. There's a couple of steps in the registration process. If you really know what you're doing, you can probably get everything done in a day and get things filed. It just depends on each individual. A lot of people just will hire a consultant because it is a headache, and it is convoluted, and they just don't want to deal with it. But it's certainly possible to file an application yourself. The only issues is make sure you just, the videos will show you what you have to do. And as long as you follow the rules, you'll be fine. I mean, the money's going to be there as long as you get your application in time and you've done your procurement right. Other than that, it's, I know that makes it sound simple, but there's a couple of things that you have to watch for. But a person could possibly navigate the process successfully and get funding.
But why would we want to do that when there are people who can do that for us? Who can do that?
You don't. So, he's never gonna say that.
I'm like, why are you telling me I need to do this by myself?
You don't ever want to. Don't do this by yourself.
I'm an E-rate nerd, and I feel like I want to just show everybody how to do it. But honestly,
I want you to take your E-rate nerdiness and use it for the good of harmony. That's what I want.
Look, yeah. Most people's like, how much are you going to charge me? Okay, just take care of that for me. But at the same time, I never want to feel like people are like, well, you have to hire a consultant to get this done. I want them to be able to at least make their own choice. And if they hire me to educate them and to show them how to do the application, then so be it. And I want everybody to know enough about the process to at least know if somebody called out of the blue, hey, where are you at in your E-rate process? You have some idea, because it just, a lot of consultants don't do that. And it just bothers me. I think that, everybody should have some idea what's going on with E-rate, because when something goes wrong and there's an audit, that's when everybody really focuses on the E-rate consultant, or, hey, tell me what's going on. And that fear is really high. So the more you know about it, the lower your fear is.
And
guys, I have to hop. I had a 10 a.m. that I pushed back a few minutes. I do have a couple more questions, Hank. Can I just email you?
Sure. Email away.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. It's nice to see your face and know who I'm emailing on the back end. I know we've been doing business with you for a while, and I'm like, I don't know who these people are. Great.
I know. Exactly.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks,
Just
Sonny.
shoot me an email. Okay. Thanks.
I will. Thanks.
All right.
Bye. Lynn Ashworth. Do you know Lynn personally, Hank? Because they use you too with Delta Charter School. Yeah.
Well, I've talked to Lynn, and especially on email, but I usually work with Cindy, I think.
Okay.
I think Cindy hadn't moved. I hadn't gotten email, so.
Well, cool, man. Well, I think this is good. I mean, that we kind of hit on all the high end points, and ultimately, if anybody wants to know more about just the E-rate process in general, obviously Hank is just a wealth of knowledge. Great, really just a great guy. And we don't work together at all. But we just
send you a check now for the endorsement.
No, definitely don't do that. But no, I mean, we just happen to run into Hank a lot of times just during the E-rate bidding process, and we've run into a lot of different consultants, and just found that his detail and stuff is just pretty impeccable and easy to work with. So man, I really appreciate you jumping on here to talk through this with the folks that could be on, and this will hopefully get out to even some other folks that weren't able to get on, that were at the conference, that were kind of in and out of other sessions. But Lynn, thanks for joining as well. We'll probably
Cindy's there too. Yeah, I saw the text. So yeah, hey Cindy.
So we'll we'd love to chat with you as well outside of this. So me or Brian may reach out to formally introduce ourselves, but thanks for everybody for joining. If you need any more information about any of this, you can either email me at james.pope@technologylab.com. I can get you in touch with Hank if that's something that you needed to do, or if you just want to kind of learn more about, how do we at Technology Lab work from an IT perspective with a lot of our charter school clients. So thanks again. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday.
Thanks, Lynn, for the shout out. For me, worth every penny. So.
All right, guys. All right. See you guys.
Hey, y'all have a great holiday season too. I'm sure I'll talk to everybody, but anyway, just have a happy holidays.
You too, Hank.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.